Hey, I'm Risdon Roberts. I'm the poor half of this podcast. I'm a consent educator, surrogate partner, and restorative practices facilitator.
I'm Mia Schachter. I'm the twink half of this podcast. I'm a writer, consent educator, and intimacy coordinator for TV, film, and theater. And this is You're Doing It Wrong. I think we nailed it. That was the best we've done so far.
That time was pretty good. Yeah, that wasn't bad.
Today we wanted to talk about capacity. Question mark. Inspired by my personal current overwhelm, burnout, to the point where I showed up 10 minutes late to therapy because I thought it started at 1 and not noon.
And it always starts at noon.
Always starts at noon on Wednesdays. It has never not started at noon.
You had like your own personal daylight savings time, basically.
Yeah, right. She sent me an email where she was like, I noticed that you're not here.
It's never, you always get the email from the therapist that's like, you okay? And
yeah.
Like, oh shit. Yeah.
Right. And I was like, yes, I am. And no, I'm not.
Yeah, like clearly.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're correct. I'm not there. So I will be momentarily. And then I was telling you that, so she told me to see if I could dedicate some time to not being responsible to anybody, like not being anything to anybody. And I just, like, my jaw hit the floor and I was like, oh my God, like that's a different kind of rest and recuperation than has ever really occurred to me. Like I'll soak my feet, I'll have a good meal, I'll schedule a massage, like, I'll take a nap, like there's like things like that, or I'll watch TV and just like zone out. Maybe I said that already. But the idea of like not having like relational responsibility for a moment was kind of big. And then I thought, okay, great. Before I record with Risdon, I'm going to walk my dog and enjoy the sun and have some moments of mindfulness and look at a tree. And then I started recording a reel as I was walking about when it is not only fine, but perhaps the right thing to do to push past your capacity.
It reminds me of that TikTok sound where it's like, but not for you though. Not for you, though. You know?
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, people should do that. That sounds great.
Right.
For everyone else.
Except for me.
Not
resting,
for
you should totally do that. But I will rest when I'm dead.
Right. I'll rest after this next benchmark.
Yes.
The one after that. Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's always the next thing.
I feel like especially being in school right now, it's like this thing that I think is really, it's true of every walk of life, but like especially in academia, it's like I just have to finish this paper.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm going to be in school for like 5 years.
Yeah.
It's like, girl, right. It's just paper after paper.
One of the benefits of school, I think, that has been occurring to me recently that I can replicate, and I am in the next year, is like that you give yourself really clear time off. Like, okay, like winter break is coming up, spring break is coming up, summer break is coming up, so that you actually have those moments of like, inhale, hold your breath, and then you have like a massive exhale. And it gives you those cycles of like, okay, this is my downtime. Whereas like, especially when you work for yourself, you couldn't just keep going and going and going and going.
Oh yeah. Like when there's industry slowdown, like over the break and stuff, it's like, oh, now I have time to do all the other things.
Shit. Yeah, like, I'll just write that book real quick while we're on hiatus. Like, what the
just fuck? Real quick. Yeah. I don't. And I feel like this is, I don't know if it's uniquely American, but I feel like other cultures, like that's not how they roll. They like relish.
No, dude, there's places you can go where they nap in the middle of the day, like they take time away from work during work.
Yeah, this thing of like you know, again, to bring up that TikTok noise again, where the not for you though, it's very much like when people say your worth is not tied to your productivity, or people say you're human beings, not human doings. I'm like, totally, but not for me.
Yeah. Totally.
I'm the exception.
I mean, right. I mean, I think I see that in myself with like various things, like including, you know, exercise, where I'm like, I know that my life would be better if I exercised, but like, I'm so glad that you have that in your life. I'm good.
You're like,
but
totally,
like, I'm not.
right. It's so important to exercise, and I shan't be doing that.
No.
Right?
No. Yeah.
My need for sleep, I swear, I don't know if it's getting older, but like I feel like my life is completely run based on just like the amount of sleep I need. I can't do anything. And I feel like I tried for a decade to operate on 5 or 6 hours, and I just can't. You know?
Well, I think that's where I'm kind of struggling with this sort of question of capacity, is like, I am so fortunate to sleep really well, and I sleep as long as I need, and I don't need to wake up with an alarm most of the time.
Yeah,
like,
are you kidding? You go to bed at like 11 latest most nights. I see you just sort of check out, and then you're up when I'm awake. You've like been awake for a while. Yeah. You just do that organically?
Oh yeah.
Oh no, if you left me in a dark room, I've slept for 36 hours before.
Oh
like,
wow.
I'll just knock out.
No, I just can't sleep anymore. Like, I'm just up.
Oh, so envious.
And there are even mornings where I'm like, man, just relax, like chill. You don't have to do anything. Like, just close your eyes. Like, you don't even have to sleep. Like, just relax. And I, like, my foot starts tapping, like my eyes will close, and it's not like it doesn't feel like anxiety. It's just kind of like, you're done. Like, you don't need more of this.
Like your egg timer's gone off. You're like,
ding. Yeah, totally. But I think that's where I'm kind of hitting this giant question mark with the capacity question, because I'm like, I'm feeling so run down and so slow, and it's showing up in things like I'm late to therapy. I forgot I had therapy at noon, or like, you know, snapping at my friends as I did to you this weekend. And I love you too. And you know, and then just then being like, oh yeah, I'll totally take on this other project because I'm excited about it. You know, like, God, I'll totally start filming with you.
Exactly.
On the weekend.
This project that I think we're talking about was like, it's taken everything in my power to not be like, I want to help too, because it's so exciting. I guess that's part of having a life worth living, is it's like there's too many good things.
Oh yeah.
Like,
well, it's fantastic, and it's so exciting. I don't want to announce it yet. I think we should wait, and we should get permission from our friend. But you know, it's something I've wanted to do for so many years. Like, I'm not going to turn this down. And I'm working on all these other projects that are so amazing and so nourishing and so exciting in all these different ways. But it's like, I am just overwhelmed. I am overwhelmed. So I think I do want to touch on, like, going past your capacity is a legitimate choice in certain instances, because I think that what can happen, and you know, this is our podcast on like consent 2.0. I feel like consent 1.0 is like, don't go beyond your capacity. Right. Super simple. Find your capacity, state it, don't go beyond it. Right. And then it's like, well, hang on a second. I'm a relational being. I operate within the variable of time. Things I said I was going to do yesterday, I don't want to do today, but I need to do them for tomorrow. So, and also I've made commitments to people I care about, and I want to follow through on those commitments. I want to show up. You know, friend is in an emotional crisis with a partner. I want to show up for her. Someone is dealing with a breakup. My friend's dog, love you. My friend's dog just got attacked, and she was like, she's in the process
for real?
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And she's in the process of opening a coffee shop this week. So she asked, like, can you, you know, let my dog out to pee if I need to? And I was like, yes, these are the ways I can help. You know, another friend got fired. I was like, these are the ways that I can help. And, you know, so there's instances where I'm like, I'm stoned on the couch and I don't want to move, but like friend is having a crisis. So I'm going to push myself because this is how I want to show up for the people I care about. Now I think there's like an element of that where it's like, where it becomes beyond what I personally want to be doing, which is like when it is about confirming or like reaffirming a part of my identity that's important to me, such as like, I want to be a good friend, right? And I'm like, do you see where I'm going? You know where I'm going with this?
Like like I'm the rescuer, I'm the stable, I'm the mom in this relationship, whatever.
Not quite like that. I think I'm talking more about being like, it's important to me to be a good listener, let's say. And so sometimes if I am trying to prove that or confirm that as a quality that I have, I may go too far past my capacity, or I may even actually stop being totally present because I'm like trying to prove to you that I'm a good listener.
You're like performing the quality.
Yeah. So
it made me just think about how like Hall of Fame baseball, it's like they get like 0.3, that's their batting average to be in the Hall of Fame. So it's like they get less than 3 out of 10, and that counts as Hall of Fame, and they're still considered like the greatest baseball players. It's like, which is a quality, but they're not perfect all the time, you know.
I love that as a metaphor, just like for everything. That's right, that like that is enough. 30%.
Not for me though.
No, not for me though. No, 100 or death. Anyway, I think I just want to differentiate between like, I'm trying to prove that I am a good friend, you know, versus like, this is really how I believe like what it means to be a good friend. It's like, I'm going to show up for you when you're in crisis. And here's the ways that I can show up. And also perhaps I have hit my capacity. Like I learn what my capacity is often by hitting my limit, going past my limit. And so then if I want to follow through on this thing, I can follow through on this thing, get myself the care that I need to recuperate, and then put systems in place for myself to prevent this kind of thing moving forward. Being able to then assess like, oh, I crossed my threshold, not because I drove 20 minutes at 9 p.m. to show up for my friend at like with food, but because I had also done X, Y, and Z today. And so now moving forward, I'm going to have more information to gauge like what is actually within my capacity before I say I'm going to do it. Since I've said I'm going to do it, I am going to follow through.
I think what I'm hearing you say is it's like, even though it's the straw that broke the camel's back thing, it's like, it's not that one straw. It's not like, even though the breakdown occurred by helping this friend, for example, it's all the other stuff before that built up to
perhaps
yes, exactly.
Right. Like those are all factors that maybe I wasn't gauging all of the factors. And so now that I've crossed my threshold and I'm noticing like, oh, I'm getting a little snippy. I'm getting a little like, oh, you know what? I didn't eat. I'm hungry, you know, like you can gather all this information and then you can go, okay, so like the next time I'm going to go help my friend with her dog, I'm going to make sure that I have a snack with me. Like, okay, that's great. That's great information.
This all seems to come back to like, and I get so whatever when people are like inner child work, like my eyes just glaze over. I'm just like, I'm putting the earmuffs on, but like it really, I do think it's helpful to remember like I have to parent myself. You know what I mean? Like I have to make sure that I get the sleep and I eat and I move my body and I, you know, it's.
Yeah, I know. It's like I do these things for my dog, but not for me though.
Not for you though.
Like, oh, sweetie, are you thirsty? Are you hungry? You need to go potty?
Meanwhile, Mia has not had a glass of water in 48 hours.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm like, why am I so cranky? Everyone's so mean.
Right. Why are my friends so fucking demanding?
Right. I
Uh,
wanted to, we were gonna kind of tie this in with like nonverbal information, and you were talking about in consent work, like something that was really eye-opening for you, around like getting a sense of the way that, like, was it that your body communicates with you to tell you? Was it for that?
yeah, like I sought a consent education because I was working with people who had I wouldn't say like SA stuff, but sort of like interrelational non-disclosure poly stuff that was sort of like a pattern of dishonesty regarding like sex and relationships. So that's why I sought your work, was to become more educated about consent. So that was my lens. And what I actually discovered was, like, for me, the biggest tool that I share a lot with clients now is the yes to no spectrum, because it really allows me, it's almost like a key to a map to be like, where am I on this? You know what I mean? So I'm like, oh, I'm talking myself into this. I'm deferring to somebody else's decision making. And also like somatically, that like I know what burnout feels like in my body. Like I feel almost like, do you remember these exercise machines where you like glue the electrical pads onto your abs and you can
Yeah.
just sit on the couch and it crunches your abs for you? It's like my whole
Yeah.
body feels like it has that in it, but it's coming from the inside. It's like
Yes.
that's what burnout feels like for me. I don't know.
Risdon, I think I can hear your hair on the microphone. Can you like,
Oh, I could, but the thing is, I look so cute right now. Okay,
you
fine.
do.
I know. I'm going for
I mean,
Veronica Lake.
you still look so cute. If you want, you can pull your hair over on the other
I
side
know, but the
to,
parts on this side, Mia, it's
I
fine. It's
see.
fine. I apologize
You
that
look
everybody has
great.
to look at this.
For everyone listening, Risdon looks so cute right now.
I curled my hair yesterday.
Just want to make sure that you know that Risdon looks so cute right now.
Like a really stressed out, threadbare Veronica Lake in a fisherman's sweater. That's the
Yeah.
look. Yeah.
Can you, I wonder if you have any, like, so I teach a class on nonverbals, and it's like all of the nonverbal ways that we communicate with each other, but also with ourselves. So like the ways that I might start to notice, like when I'm no longer being super honest, maybe my voice kind of goes up like this a little bit. And so I'm like, I'm playing with the strings that are hanging off of my shorts because these are cut off jeans, and I just kind of started going a little faster with it. And like, I don't know, so like, okay, that's like great information for me. Other information is like, I've been able to notice now, like I can tell the kind of stress that I'm feeling in my body when I have to speak up. Like I will regret not speaking up. My pits start sweating, my hands start sweating. My breath gets really shallow, and my mouth goes dry. And
like this adrenalizing to speak sort of thing.
Yeah. But I think without having had that experience enough times, I just would have thought like, I'm sick now. I feel bad now. I need to leave, perhaps.
Well, it's flight, right?
It's flight, totally.
Yeah,
Totally.
yeah.
And so now I recognize that, and I'm like, I know what this means. This means I have to say something. Like I can notice my flight and go, actually, this is what I'm gonna choose to do, is fight.
Like pivot just a tiny bit.
What?
Like pivot it a tiny bit.
Yeah.
Instead of being like,
harness it in a way. Yeah. And then, more positive stuff. Like when I'm feeling pretty confident and grounded, I'm usually like speaking as I am right now. I often look like out and to the left a little bit, up. Whereas like when I'm stressed or nervous or talking about something that like is hard to talk about, I'm often like looking kind of down and to the right, and my speech kind of slows down, and I will generally reach for something to fidget with. So yeah. So like, this is all information, for other people, but they can't read my mind. It's information for me about, I'm hitting my capacity. I'm stressed. I'm nervous. I'm not comfortable. I am comfortable. I'm feeling super grounded right now. I'm listening, like this is just all really useful information for each of us. And then I think I'll punt it to you in terms of like, what does that mean around consent and like disclosure? I think was like where we were kind of going.
Yeah, you mean like
or like honesty with yourself,
right? Being able to like know when you're, again, I use this term a lot, like in or out of alignment with myself, which is sort of woo-woo speak, but it just means like, am I fighting myself or am I not fighting myself, right? And then being able to have some insight and clarity around that so that I can disclose or can speak honestly. I feel like for me, it's not, I don't often find myself in places where, if I find myself in a place where I have to be a little dishonest, like perhaps when I was stripping, right? Like I'm not necessarily being dishonest, but I'm not somebody who really puts on a persona. But I'm a version of myself, and I'm indicating perhaps like more sexual availability than I am actually feeling in my pussy.
Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't feel, I don't think I have like tells. Maybe also part of the reason I don't have tells is because I have worked so often in spaces where I have to project something other than what I'm actually feeling, like especially with sex work. Or I was a waitress for a really long time. And so I can feel what's going on in my body. And maybe I do have tells, but I'm not really sure what they are. But I know like I can have like a panic if I'm feeling like burnt out and I'm getting a lot of requests from friends for like emotional support. That's like a big thing for me, where I'm just like, I want to throw my phone into the river and just go back to 1990 where nobody can reach me, you know? Yeah, I think more the version for me is I tend to be a fighter as well. However, I can go into fight when I feel like I'm not being heard. And then I get the feedback a lot that I'm yelling when I don't actually think that I'm yelling, which I just attribute to being Irish Catholic, but just a much louder woman than I think I am. I don't know. I guess that would be my tell.
Yeah. I think you were telling me before I guess I was talking about like this sort of thing that I've said over the years around like consent is a really useful tool to help remove the veil between you and yourself. And what I mean by that is like the ways that like I can't be honest with other people when I'm lying to myself.
Right. And even lying to myself, it's like sometimes it's like I just don't know what the truth is. Like something I say to people a lot when I'm presented with like an ask or a request or an offer, I'm like, I often say I do not know my truth in the moment. Like I'm just somebody who has to take a step back and kind of let it sort of reverberate through the bell of my body until I know where I land with it. And maybe that, I imagine that's true for a lot of people, but some people just don't know their truth at all because they just are not very introspective, or they haven't been interested in that process for a long time, right?
Yes. I mean, I think like I've for a long time now said like I'm not the friend who's going to help you lie to yourself.
Oh yeah.
Like, you know, if I had a friend years ago in Brooklyn, and she was like rampantly cheating on her boyfriend, and like they were not poly, she was just fully cheating on her boyfriend, and
I shouldn't be laughing, I'm sorry.
And like, you know, I hate that. I think that sucks, but it's like not really my business. Like this is her relationship, whatever. And like I was fully prepared to like be there and support her through whatever feelings she was having. But what kept happening was that she would say like, well, I only slept with this guy because this was going on, and like it's okay because like she was just kind of doing these like mental gymnastics to like retroactively justify her behavior that like she herself didn't even agree with more like morally.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, I feel like this happens a lot when people get into therapy. They're like, well, I do this thing that I don't like that I do, such as cheat on my boyfriend, because of this reason, which therapy has now illuminated to me. I know where my pattern comes from. And they kind of stop there.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
yes, and let's
Right. Okay.
right. So what are we doing
Yep.
about it?
Keep
Yeah.
going. Keep going. But so like there were these ways that I was just like witnessing her tell these lies, and like in order for me to be, you know, the lies to herself, and she would go like, and that's okay, and that's okay, and that's okay. And I started to feel like in order to be the friend that she wanted, I was gonna have to go like, yeah, that totally makes sense to me. Like, I for sure, yeah, like that, you're right, you know. And I just kind of got to a point where I was like, oh, I can't do that. I can't,
Be complicit.
yes. And like I have a dear friend now who came to me, and I'm not going to disclose anything. I'm going to be very careful. But like, you know, I think I said some things that were hard for her to hear. She told me as much, but she also expressed a lot of appreciation that I wasn't just being like, yes, you're right. Yes, you're right. Yes, you're right. And you know, I'm not always the friend then that people are going to call when they just need to like, you know, like have someone say like, you're right, he sucks, you're 100% correct, you know, like, and that's fine. Like we all need different friends and whatever, but like that's not going to be me. So anyway, I think in terms of like consent being this way in to remove the veil, something comes to mind that our friend has brought up a number of times from 12 step, which is this idea of like giving plausible but untrue reasons for your behavior. I love that so much.
I'm trying to think of an example of that in my life. Plausible but untrue.
I can give an example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do it.
So I told you about this date I had this weekend where where they like didn't ask me anything about myself the entire time, and like didn't ask me, not even about myself, but like didn't ask me a question. Like they just kind of kept talking. I don't know, maybe I made them nervous. That would be like my generous read on the situation. But like anyway, you know, leaving a date like that, I'm like, okay, that's like probably not for me. So I do currently have a friend in crisis, and I had told her that I would be available over the next several days if she needed to call, if she wanted me to come over, like whatever I was able to do, like, yes, I will do. So this date was near her, near where she lives. And I told her, like, I'm getting coffee at 10:30. I can come over around 11:30 if you want, or I can just call you, or I can not, you know. And she was like, great, thanks for checking in. So around 11:30, I'm like, I don't really want to be on this date anymore. And yes, I did say that I would check on my friend, but that was not why I wanted to leave this date. So I told this date, like I said, I would check on my friend. I told her I would be available. And so I'm going to go.
Right.
So that, yes, that is a plausible reason why I'm leaving this date. But it's not the actual reason why I'm leaving this date.
Right. I see what you're saying. Counterpoint. Yeah. My sponsor likes to say, not everybody is entitled to your honesty.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. I completely agree with that. I don't think everyone is entitled to my honesty, my intimacy, my vulnerability, my truth. Yeah. Like I completely agree. And I also don't think that like there's no real need for me to say to this person, I don't want to keep hanging out with you.
No, it's like you're like, you knew, you're like, this isn't really a vibe, and I'm not going to see this person again. So like leaving politely is the like, why set a bomb off on your way out the door?
Right. But so we can use this example and extrapolate to like more sinister things, right? Where like
I love sinister things.
Yeah, like where I'm not trying to like I am and also you can imagine situations in which like I'm not even aware that I'm not being honest about why I'm leaving. I really do believe that it's because I said I was going to go check on my friend. And like that's the place where I think that like opacity with yourself, you know, this is a pretty harmless example of this, but like we can all probably think of not so harmless versions where the lie that someone is telling is the result of like them actually not knowing their own truth because
like
they're
your friend who's like, well, I'm cheating on my partner because I'm lonely because they're out. It's like, babe, maybe you just wanted to come.
yeah, no, you just don't want to be with this person anymore.
Right.
And like you don't want to end the relationship, you're trying to get him to end the relationship.
Boy, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think this kind of thing happens all the time.
It requires some, I think everyone to a certain degree, we can, maybe we don't, maybe it's impossible to know like our own internal total truth. Like,
yeah,
you're doing 20 years of psychoanalysis and you're still like, you
oh
don't
yeah,
really know what's going on at the deep depths, Durham. Like the deep sea where it's like pitch black, like you don't really know. But it's like I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of why I do the things I do, or perhaps I'll do something and then pretty quickly I'll know why I
yeah,
did that. But it's hard when you interact with people, which often happens in dating, right? We kind of have this like very quick like introduction to somebody we don't really know at all. And we like talk to them for a while. Where it's like not everybody is aware of their own truth. Like not everyone's that in touch with themselves.
yes. And so then there comes this philosophical question that I am often entertaining, which is like, are you responsible for the lies you don't know you're telling?
Yeah, that's yeah, like it's almost like you, because you don't know, like you don't
Right.
know. I mean, I can think about, I didn't know why when I was deep in alcoholism, I didn't know I was an alcoholic. I didn't know that I was drinking because of X, Y, and Z. I literally was just like, this is the only good thing in my life is drinking, you know?
Yes. And then it's like, then there comes this question of like, but there is very real impact of lies, even when you don't know you're telling them.
Yeah.
And if you repeatedly are being dishonest and you don't do any like, and you don't reflect, you know, and then you don't start to go like, all right, like this is, I really need to start looking at this.
I'm
Like,
causing harm, I'm causing
yes,
wreckage, whatever.
right. And you and I talk a lot about like blame. And like, I think there's a way to look at this that's like, well, what if no one is to blame for the lies you don't know you're telling? But I don't feel, you know, it's kind of like how I think you and I have talked about this, where like, if someone is repeatedly hurting you and they're not in therapy, it's really hard to go like, okay, it could just be like this forever and I'm going to stay in this relationship. Like that's, I mean, I'm often like, unless you are planning on like figuring this out and you are doing the work and the, you know, digging into this, like I may have to exit this relationship entirely. Like I'm sure he's never going to listen to this. So like my dad is an example. You know, there have been times before he was in therapy that I was like, I don't know that I'm going to be able to have a relationship with my dad forever. Like I would think about having kids and being like, you know, if you continue to have these angry outbursts, like I will not be bringing my child around you.
Yeah.
And now that he's in therapy, my patience with him has expanded. So like if someone is being repeatedly dishonest with you because they're being repeatedly dishonest with themselves and they are not willing to look at that, I may have to exit. If that is something that they're willing to look at, then there's like potential here.
Yeah, I think bringing up family is, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. Like for me, I don't have a relationship with my father, and I have a very on again, off again relationship with my mother. And if either of these people weren't my family,
Yeah.
I would not have a relationship with them. You know, I think because, you know, I was just talking with my cousin about this, like we come from a family where like we don't do boundaries. Like for me to be like, hey, you can't talk to me like that is I'm now certifiably insane. Like, of course, everyone can talk to you however they want to. And I'm like, well, the thing is, if you're going to talk to me that way, I'm just not going to talk to you. And that's like,
and you're a fucking fascist,
right?
Because
And
you're
I'm
trying to control how they talk to you.
Right. And it's like, just let, you know, who even knows what the justification is, but yeah, it's like I'm a bitch for being like, you can't talk to me this way, or you can talk to me however you want. I'm just not going to speak to you. Right. Yeah.
Right. There are consequences for you speaking to me that way, namely like my presence in your life.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I think, you know, my mother and my father are never going to go to therapy. Like they're not changing, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so this kind of brings up like where you were going with this before we started recording, which was that you can only meet people at the level that they've met themselves.
Yeah. And I think it's hard because I think, you know, in queer culture, like it is pretty common for people to be in therapy. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they're actually, I would think like one of the designs of therapy or one of the intentions of therapy is to like figure out what our behavior patterns are that don't serve us, why we do those behavior patterns, and try to like change them. But that's not necessarily, everybody's not at the same place in that journey. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's hard.
Well, I sometimes wonder, like, you know, how I am represented to other people's therapists. I had someone say to me once that like this thing that I said to them was so obviously wrong, like even their therapist thought that it was wrong.
Can we
and
just,
I was
sorry, can we just like make a blanket declaration, like please don't weaponize what your therapist said in a session against me, because first of all, I don't believe you. Second of all, why is your therapist saying that? Like, your therapist,
what have you told them that is making them say that?
And what good therapist is responding with like declarative statements about the character of someone
about other people? I know. No, I'm totally with you. And like, and I also know for a fact that this person was like not providing the context to what was said. Like, without a doubt, this person was not providing the context. And so, but you know, okay, so like I try not to concern myself with how anyone thinks of me when I'm not around, like whatever. It's honestly just not even my business. But I then wonder not just like how I'm being described like to their therapist, but I often wonder, does your therapist then like hold you accountable to your own patterns? Like, I know for this person specifically that like everyone is like evil, you know, like everyone is out to get them, everyone is hurting them, everyone is doing and saying the wrong thing, and like this is why I no longer am in this person's life or have them in my life. But like, does a therapist, you know, like to the question of like you can only meet people where they've met themselves, like I wonder if therapists see through that. And then of course the flip side of that is like I am also in therapy and I also talk about other people, right? And so like, does my therapist see through me if I'm starting to go like, you know, if I'm starting to say patterns, like is my therapist going to say, well, you know, I've noticed that like you say this particular thing about a lot of people in your life. Like, what is that about?
A pattern here.
Right. But right, like if I'm not willing to look at that, no one else can get me to look at that.
Yeah. And even like, I don't know, I feel like in a lot of times in therapy, I've said like, if both of my parents, if I can't have a relationship with both of my parents, surely that says something about me.
Right.
Most people have one good parent, right?
Sure.
Like, I'm like, come on. Like I call them crazy checks. Like I've done this to you before too.
Yeah.
Like tell me,
Is
am I out of my mind? Like, because
right?
the reality that I'm looking at is so bananas. And I think even like with dating, I had my therapist recently say to me, like, because I was like, man, I dated this person, it was going so well, and then it just exploded and it was terrible. And my therapist was like, people are not well.
Yes.
Which I was like, this is also kind of comes back to what we were talking about earlier. We're like, I'm not the friend who's gonna co-sign your bullshit, right? I'm not the friend who's
Yes.
gonna be complicit in your lies. Like, I like when people tell, like, if I'm being cheated on, I want my friends to tell me. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, tell me the
Yeah.
hard truth. I'd rather know. And my therapist was them saying to me, like, people are not, it's hard to date because most people are not well, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that sucks to hear, but I'm so glad you were honest with me.
Well, I feel that way about like my, people who come into my DMs, right? Or like people who used to comment on my page when I had comments on, and then how like there's so much critique of like people who don't have comments on their page, like you're not open to feedback, you don't want to hear from the public. And I'm like, the public as a whole is not well. Like they are not, generally speaking, like down to earth, present, listening, caring, like,
self-reflective.
yes, no, that's not the case.
I'm sorry, have you met the public? Yeah.
Mhm. Yes. Like, what do you mean I need to take feedback from everybody?
Yeah, I'm
No,
good.
no, no,
How bad is
no.
this dog in the background
I can't
driving
hear
the
it anymore.
call? Okay.
I can't hear it. Oh, I can hear it a little bit.
Yeah, you did. I think, should we pause for a sec?
Sure.
I think they may have just gotten.
Okay, we're back.
Hi.
I don't
Sorry.
remember exactly where we left off.
I don't know either. There's dogs everywhere. I think we were just talking about therapy and like, are people actually doing the work, or are they just like, well, I have a therapist?
Oh, that the public isn't well.
Oh, the
and
public.
people on
Boy.
Instagram aren't well. I mean, all you gotta do to know this is like open a dating app and just look at how many people you're like, oh God, are you okay? You don't look okay.
I just started disassociating. Yeah.
I go through dating apps and I'm like, yeah, I do. Like, if this person commented on my page, if this person DM'd me, like, I would not need to, like, I can gather from the things you say and the things that you're doing in your photos that like we do not have much in common, including our values. And I do not need to take your feedback on how I'm doing my work.
Yeah, it's also like, who is this for? Like, who's this work for?
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's not for necessarily, I mean, it'd be great if everybody was interested in it, but I think you kind of have to be at a certain level of like being interested in interpersonal dynamics and like your own experience with the
Sure.
world to even be able to get your work. Does that make sense?
Yes. And on Instagram, you can, like, an incel can talk to me if they want to. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that person does not get to tell me, like, how to do what I do.
Yeah. They're not well, Mia. The
No.
people, my therapist was like, unfortunately, I'm an expert and I can say with authority, people are not well.
Yeah.
Disappointing news.
Oh yeah, so sorry to say, but
real bummer.
Right. Well, let's leave it there today. I think next week we can try to get to like what happens when you start to do this work, but like people around you aren't, and like how you can engage in conversations with people without like around this stuff without being like without giving them like a syllabus and like a resource list to catch up. Because there are ways to do it, and then there are ways that like relationships change and a lot of them fall away, and like the schism sometimes just grows, and it can be really hard. We can do that next time.
Okay.
Any closing statements?
No. God bless you all.
God bless. May
the road rise to meet you. May you meet the well people. I bless you to meet the people that are well.
May you find your
Here's a good one.
Inner truth.
May you date at your level of wellness.
Yes.
There's my wish for you, our
That's
lovely audience.
beautiful. I'll leave it there. I like that one. Thank you.